Get your mask on, Houston. It's now mandatory. As local COVID hospitalizations continue their steady decline, the county judge makes it a crime to enter public with an uncovered face. Is it commonsensical caution or government overkill? In the nation's capital, the president temporarily closes America to immigration. Is it a prudent move against pandemic or a political play aimed at pleasing his base? And from the CDC, a warning of a possible coronavirus surge in the fall. Will the mere threat drastically slow economic recovery and keep much of America bunkered in for the long haul? I'm Greg Grugan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, longtime super neighborhood leader Tamara Bell. Next up, conservative attorney Michelle Maples. In the 3 spot, well-known columnist and businessman Bill King. Batting cleanup, legal analyst Carmen Rowe. And closing us out, Bob Price, associate editor of Breitbart, Texas. Let's begin. As hundreds of ICU beds remain vacant, as a multi-million-dollar emergency hospital sits unused, as the number of COVID-19 patients requiring treatment falls, and as full days go by without a coronavirus death in Houston, Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo doubled down on prevention with an order that's triggered both controversy and defiance. As of tomorrow, it will be a crime to enter a public place in our community without a mask or face covering. The month-long order comes with teeth, a potential $1,000 fine for violators. Kids under 10 years of age are exempt, as are those out in public exercising. Hidalgo's decision has drawn support from Mayor Sylvester Turner and a range of healthcare leaders. It has also drawn plenty of scorn as outrageous overreach by a politician far too eager to impose her authority. Panel, what is your point? I'm going to start with Tamara Bell.
Listen, I do understand the need for people to wear some kind of covering, as they say the virus is in the droplets. So I can see that there be a recommendation, but to make it a crime with a fine, when people are having harder times than they've ever had in their life, and those who are most vulnerable, who are in the low economic, how they gonna afford a mask? You may say, oh, well, they could put anything around their face. You don't know if they've even had money to even go wash clothes or have something that they can use. I have a problem with it being criminalized. I do believe it should be a recommendation. If you're looking at opening the city back up, the last thing we want to do is open the city back up and then have it spike. And then you got to go and step and pull everything back. I think that when you're about to reopen the city, precautions need to be done and measures need to be taken. I pray that the elected officials honestly realize the difficult situation that so many Houstonians and Harris County residents are going into in the first time in their life. I'm telling you, I'm out there. I'm going to Gallery Furniture where they're feeding people every day. I told you, Greg, on the Saturday before Easter, a restaurant here, Elias Duran, gave out 12,000 meals. It was so many people. He had no choice but to go buy more food so nobody would go hungry. And then to throw this on them, you're going to get a $1,000 fine when they don't even have bus fare. I have a problem with that.
Okay, Bill King, no one is focusing on this issue more diligently than you. What do you think of Hidalgo's mandatory mask order?
Well, I thought that criminalizing it was ridiculous, frankly. It's not going to be enforced. I mean, HPD came out and said they weren't going to enforce it. The Harris County Sheriff's Association said they weren't going to come out and enforce it. You know, even Turner, while he supports wearing masks, said the city wasn't going to enforce it. So I just thought it was a tremendous overkill. Look, I think that if businesses want to say, you need to have a mask to come in my business, I think they've got every right to do that. I would comply with that. To say that I've got to go wear a mask while I'm driving down to visit my parents in Kemah, I'm not going to do that.
Okay, Carmen Rowe, let's get a legal perspective on this very controversial move by the county judge.
Well, as a criminal defense attorney, I mean, this is so out of touch with what we need here in Houston. The fact that the fine is $1,000 tells you how out of touch she really is. The truth is while enforcement's important, a fine like that at a price tag of $1,000 is really just reinforcing this hurt that's already in the community. And so to turn our citizens into criminals, to charge them a fine of $1,000, not $200, not something you would see in traffic court, but $1,000 fine, I think is beyond overreaching. I think it's punitive. And I think that it's something that is so out of touch with what we need here in Houston, which is, you know, working together. What happened to that message? This is not working together. This is dividing our citizens, and it's penalizing people who can not get masks, people who cannot wear those masks, and people who may not need those masks in every single situation that's out there. I mean, it's absurd that children under 10 and then people who are exercising don't wear masks. I mean, the message is not clear. It needs to be tightened up, and she needs to understand that this is Houston and we are supposed to be working together, and this is not going to get us there.
Bob Price, the county judge is drawing fire from outside the Harris County boundary, specifically Austin, and most recently and loudly by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. You think that that criticism is justified?
Well, clearly, Lieutenant Governor Patrick is doing a good job of letting that judge know that she's not a dictator. And, you know, I've talked to some local law enforcement officers in the Harris County area who are now referring to her as Fraulein Hidalgo, and that, you know, that just no respect for her dictatorial methodology of trying to take over this county, which is, you know, I think she's revealing what the real agenda of this activist leftist Democratic Party is becoming, that they want to just take over your lives. We're smarter than you. We know what you need, and we're going to tell you what you have to do. And now we're going to punitively penalize you with $1,000 fine. That's just absurd. Police are not going to enforce that. Murders are up significantly in Harris County. Burglaries are up significantly in Harris County. Domestic violence assaults are up dramatically in Harris County. That's what police officers need to be worried about, not going out and writing $1,000 citations to replenish the coffers of Harris County. It's confiscatory. She's trying to steal money from people to make up the shortage there. So we need to, you know, the district court judges slapped her down and put her back in her place when she tried to let dangerous criminals out of the Harris County jail. And now you're going to see that the courts are going to come back, or the Texas Attorney General is going to come in and say, this is completely unconstitutional. She has no authority to be doing this.
I saved our mother-to-be for last. You know, Michelle Maples, people have said, look, as we start opening up our society a little more, this is a small price to pay in terms of prevention. What's your take on this?
Well, it's an individual choice, Greg. My freedom and my liberty does not end where your fear begins. And look, I've got issues with Lina Hidalgo, but this is my big issue here, is that she is changing the rules of the game in the middle of the game. Prior to this mask ordinance, she wanted to flatten the curve, and she made it known, my goal is to flatten the curve. Well, look, guys, the curve has been flattened, but now that's not enough. I have to go further, and I have to enact a mask ordinance where I am going to make criminals out of law-abiding citizens, but at the same time, I am going to tout my political agenda with bail reform and let criminals out of jails because of the fear of COVID. What she's doing is completely contradictory. It does not make sense. And I think Bob hit the nail on the head, is that we are now seeing her true colors, that she wants to control Houstonians' lives because she thinks she's smarter than the rest of her constituents.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Good conversation, folks. Up next, outspoken Houston City Councilman Michael Kibosh unloads on the mask mandate. His spirited rebuke of the order is still ahead, so stick around. Welcome back. Michael Kibosh was elected to City Council after leading a popular uprising against red light cameras. Kibosh argues that Judge Lina Hidalgo's mandatory mask order is in the same category of unnecessary government overreach.
We are trying to let the county judge know that this type of an action is totally unacceptable to the public. You can't threaten the public during this period of time with a $1,000 fine if they don't wear a mask. And the problem is they're wanting the people 10 and above to wear the mask. Are you really going to be putting our police officers, our constables, our sheriff's deputies in trying to enforce some type of an order that is really unenforceable? And not everybody has masks. Not everybody realizes that she would accept a bandana or a handkerchief or maybe a towel or whatever as a covering. And I want everybody to be safe. I think we should all do everything we can to be safe. I'm not going to go through the safety measures. We've heard them thousands of times by now. But for her to make this statement and to tell people they're going to be facing a criminal, actually it's a fine, which would be a criminal penalty, it doesn't make sense. The reason why people put me in office is because I stood up against the red light camera companies whenever they wanted to put a fine on us for running a red light, electronic red light. I stood up. It takes courage to do some of the things that we do to stand up, and we have to stand up. We have to say, look, this is enough, and we're just not going to take it anymore. And I told the judge, rescind her order.
Council member, there are those who say this is a distraction for our police at a time when crime is rising.
Crime is rising. Since the federal judge has ordered that everybody get a free bond, we also know that about half of them go to court once they get the free bond. And right now, we know the crime rate's way up. Murder's up. Home burglaries are up. Business burglaries are up. There was a home invasion that was never reported by the media where a family was tied up here recently. And some of the families have called me about this. They're very concerned. And so we've got to do what we can to protect our citizens. And the police need to be looking for those folks and not people without wearing a mask.
Still ahead, a head-snapping warning from the leader of the CDC. Could a more severe coronavirus outbreak still be months away? Our panel dives into the topic after this short break.
Fall and winter, we are going to have two viruses circulating, and we're going to have to distinguish between which is flu and which is the coronavirus.
COVID-weary America got an unwelcome jolt this week when CDC Director Robert Redfield said a second coronavirus outbreak could emerge this winter and, along with seasonal flu, generate yet another difficult health crisis. The statement, published first in the Washington Post, appeared to douse the hopes of those pushing for economic and societal recovery sooner rather than later. President Trump responded by predicting, quote, "It's not going to be anything like we've been through in any way, shape, or form, and it may not come back at all," end quote. Bill King, start us off. What's your take on Redfield's prediction?
Well, it increasingly looks like this virus is going to have a seasonality to it like the flu does, and that it's going to overlap that same cycle. So I think he makes a good point, because I don't think most people realize the degree to which the regular flu taxes our healthcare system every winter. I got the flu 4, 5, 6 years ago in the emergency room, and I was in a gurney all night long in the hallway. The emergency room was so crowded in Methodist. So I think there is a possibility it could tax it. But his real message is, go get the flu shot, folks. If you get the flu shot, then you take yourself out of the equation.
Bob Price, you've been covering coronavirus from the get-go. What was your reaction to the CDC announcement?
Well, it's really not news. Early on in late January, early February, I read reports about this was going to be a seasonal type of thing, and it very well would come back. So, but it is shocking, I think, at this point when people are starting to get a little bit of a sense of relief about the virus maybe waning a little bit, to think, oh my gosh, it's going to come back. Are we going to have to do this lockdown all over again? What's the situation going to be? But the coronavirus, the common cold is a coronavirus narrative as well. And so you can expect that it's going to follow that same type of pattern. Whether we'll be able to get a vaccine for it, I don't know. But, scientists, the real thing that is coming out about this is we don't know. We don't know what this thing is going to do. And nobody knows. There's a lot of predictions. There's a lot of models. Most of the models have been proven wrong so far. But, it's just a brand new thing, and we're going to have to see where it goes.
Tamara Bell, out in the neighborhoods, they got this news that, oh my gosh, it may not be over. We may get a second round of this in the fall. Were people discouraged? Did you hear any talk about it?
Yes, what they were concerned about is that we're praying, we're hoping at the time when they're saying it's going to come back, school will be in. So what measures will they take to make it so that it won't be as disruptive as it was for the spring when this comes back during flu season, when schools are in, and when you have more people grouped together during the flu season, which you do because schools are in. And like Bill said, that time of year, emergency rooms are overflowing. One time I had to go through what Bill was talking about, and I just called my doctor and he got me a Z-Pack because I was too sick to stay in the emergency room and wait. So hopefully they will have come up with something so it won't be as bad as it is for the first go round.
Michelle Maples, is there a point when we just need to say, Americans, we got to suck it up and get on with life? We get sick, we stay home, but we just have to reopen this economy and society.
We cannot do what we are doing now again. We cannot sustain this avenue. It's not going to work. Last fall, it was influenza B was the big scary flu. And keep in mind, guys, I read a Houston Chronicle article from last fall as I was doing a little research. 2,000 Houstonians died in 2018 of the regular flu. Okay, 2,000. We have 35 deaths as of yesterday from COVID-19, as reported by Fox 26. And so we have got to use our common sense here. Wash your hands, get the flu shot. If you are part of the vulnerable population, stay in, okay? But we cannot afford this to sustain the road that we're going down. We have got to get back to work, and we just have to be vigilant and take care of ourselves and take care of our those in our community who are the more vulnerable.
Carmen Rowe, I'm interested in this. How long can our judicial system continue to operate in a remote fashion? I mean, I would assume your colleagues want to get back into court, but if we have continuing stay-at-home orders and people who are hesitant to go into public places, what are the ramifications?
You know, I think at the outset, it's important for everybody to realize there is no post-corona life. There's only life after corona. And so I don't think the judicial system's ever going to be the same again, period. At this time, the judicial system's been pretty much shut down until June 1st based on Greg Abbott's orders. But make no mistake, we continue to work. And what we're doing is finding a better way to work in the current environment. And so if there's a resurgence of this virus, hopefully we don't panic. Hopefully we've learned a lot in the last couple of months so that we can continue to function. We are functioning in our judicial system right now. Now, there's a lot of problems and there's a lot of kinks that we're working out, and everybody's doing what they need to do to protect the individuals they represent in the square that they have between judges and prosecutors and defense attorneys. But post-corona life is going to be different forever in the judicial system. And hopefully we'll see improvements because we have so many people concerned about an area that generally doesn't get a lot of attention.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Yes, she's a Democrat, but she's working the floor of Congress hard on behalf of the wounded and stumbling Texas oil patch. When we return, our one-on-one conversation with Representative Lizzie Fletcher. Hope you'll stay with us. Welcome back. It's no secret the 7th Congressional District, represented by Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher, will suffer long and hard if the Texas energy industry gets seriously gutted by simultaneous pandemic and global price war. This week, Fletcher spoke with Fox 26 about her practical effort to ease some of the pain.
And in my district, we have the privilege of being the energy capital of the world and leading the country. And so what we are seeing from our perspective here is the incredible impacts, not only of what's been going on with Saudi Arabia and Russia, but of COVID-19 affecting the global demand for oil and gas. And as a result, we are feeling acutely the problems that arise from the epidemic, the pandemic, and also what that means for people who live and work here, who have been supplying energy, not just for our country, but for our world. And so it's really important for us to do what we can and recognize that there's still a lot more that will need to happen. But one of the things that I've been working on, I introduced a bill this week to appropriate money for the United States to buy $3 billion worth of oil for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We announced this bill a couple of weeks ago. I was glad to be able to file it now. We have a bipartisan, bicameral effort, a lot of members from Texas and Oklahoma, but also North Dakota and folks from around the country who are supportive of this effort, because we realize that it is a smart and important thing for us to do. It won't solve all the problems, but it will help with our producers who are feeling this incredible pressure right now, and the folks who work throughout the industry. Because there are competing pressures, and I hear from my constituents, I've heard from more than 1,000 small businesses across our district about the incredible financial burden that they are feeling. At the same time, I hear from my constituents, another 1,000 of them at least, calling to talk about their concerns about our public health, about their own health, the health of their families, the health of their employees, of our first responders, of our healthcare workers in our hospitals. You know, we care about both of those things, and we care about the impact that this pandemic is having across our community. And so we want to be smart in how we engage and how we move forward and protect the health and safety of our community. And I think that, you know, governments come together for the safety of the people, and that is the first responsibility of government, is our safety. And so we have to approach it from the health and safety standpoint.
Still ahead, 2 years after the hurricane, the state of Texas is clawing back complete control of Harvey relief funds from the city of Houston. Was it mismanagement or just partisan politics at play? Our panel dives in after the break. Welcome back. This week, Commissioner George P. Bush of the Texas General Land Office repoed a 10-figure disaster program from the city of Houston, after doing much the same with Harris County. The numbers are undeniably disturbing. More than $1 billion federal dollars to distribute, and after 2 years, only $15 million actually reaching the Houston Harvey victims in desperate need of restoring their damaged homes. On this program and others, we have dutifully repeated the excuses, the alibis, and the partisan finger-pointing. But the bottom line remains less than 100 Harvey victims have gotten relief, and the city of Houston just hasn't gotten the job done. Mayor Sylvester Turner didn't take Bush's move lightly and returned fire.
And what really has irked me, in the midst of the coronavirus, when the focus is keeping everybody safe, all hands have been on deck, GLO is sending out this notice in the midst of the coronavirus. Will someone please tell the state that there is a virus here that's very deadly?
Panel, what do we make of this development? I want to start with Bill King.
Yeah, so this has been a 2.5-year slow-moving train wreck. 92 people have been helped so far in the last 2.5 years. By the way, the county also had their money pulled. They actually negotiated with Bush and kept part of it and gave part of it back to keep him from taking the whole thing. But I guess what sort of ought to kind of worry us is this is a group of people that can't give away free money, and they're in charge of managing an epidemic.
Tamara Bell, you keep in close contact with a lot of these victims. How do you see this move?
Listen, you know, I went to Harris County Commissioner's Court and I spoke about the vendor that they had selected to manage this project, which happened to be the same vendor the city had. And I told them about the historical problems of that vendor. So I hate to be, I told you so, but hell, I told you so. So I'm not surprised that this came to this. Nobody should have been surprised. The more the numbers came out, the more they were more heartbreaking, because these people are the same ones who are already marginalized by Harvey, who've been knocked to the ground by COVID. And how are they supposed to get up without the help that they needed? You telling people to shelter in place to protect themselves, the roof's still leaking, the door won't close, and the windows are cracked. How is that supposed to be sheltering in place? This was something that everybody knew was about to occur.
Carmen Rowe, I want to ask you this. The mayor is saying that this is partisan politics, Republicans in Austin trying to punish Democrats here in Houston. As you saw this unfold, what was your read?
What else can you say? I mean, the numbers don't lie. And so this is mismanagement, and it's the lack of transparency that we've talked about here on this show and that everybody's talking about with Sylvester Turner. That's a consistent theme throughout. And just like Tamara Bell said, I mean, it's heartbreaking to think that there are people who are, well, there's a significant number of people that are still suffering from Harvey who've gotten no relief from the city of Houston after promises and promises and promises that are now suffering with this new pandemic. And we are edging up on hurricane season. I mean, it's unimaginable. And so I'm glad that somebody has decided to step up and take control and hopefully get some relief to these families.
Bob Price, the same question to you. I mean, you follow closely the political give and take between Republicans and Democrats in this state. Does Sylvester Turner have a legitimate point that perhaps this is kind of Republicans undermining Democrats in the major cities, the state's biggest city, in fact, Houston, Texas?
Well, Republican philosophy is to allow local control at the utmost level. My question, though, is this needed to be taken back a long time ago. Commissioner Bush, why has it taken you so long to get control of this project and get some money out to these people that deserve relief? We know money's being spent out of the fund, but it's being spent to the cronies that are being hired under these lucrative contracts to do nothing, and they're not getting the money distributed.
Okay, Michelle Maples, as you've watched this unfold over the last couple of years, is there any excuse not to have more than 92 Houstonians hurt by Harvey receiving federal help?
There's no excuse. We are knocking down 3 years now. We are turning a corner to year 3 of Hurricane Harvey devastating our city. And you're telling me 92 people have been helped out of a $1.5 billion fund? Now, Bob's right. If you were to ask me, should local authorities have control over the pot of money and they decide how and who it's dispersed to? Absolutely, because I think the local authorities are the ones who are on the ground and they're the ones who know who is the most hurt by this disaster. However, we have seen through this Turner's administration that he has been incompetent. And for whatever reason, for the past 2.5, almost 3 years, we have not been able to bring our own city back up. It is time, thank God it is time, that the state comes in, the grown-ups come in and start helping Houstonians, since our mayoral administration, for whatever reason, has decided not to.
Bill, I want to come back to you because it's a legitimate point. Is the process too Byzantine, too complicated, too much red tape? Because we're hearing that as one reason more people haven't been helped.
No, that's absolutely true. Sylvester does have a point there. The federal regulations are just ridiculously complicated. But, you know, most of the money in the state was retained by the General Land Office. So places like Rockport, those were administered directly out of the GLO and not locally. And so we've got a comparison to how you can perform. And while that's moved slow, it's moved at light speed compared to what's happened to Harris County and the city of Houston. So yes, the process is complicated, but it can be managed. And look, Bob makes a great point, and Tamara also. The people that were hired to do this had all sorts of history of problems in not managing these well. And then there were all these consultants that were put in that were basically political contributors. So yeah, this was mismanaged, but it is complicated.
Got to leave it there. Up next, super cheap gas spells super big trouble for the state of Texas and the industry that fuels a gigantic chunk of Houston's economy. We will hear the latest hard news when Watch Your Point comes right back. Welcome back. This week, the bottom literally fell out of the global oil market. With an already problematic glut of crude looking for buyers, this pandemic has absolutely crushed demand. The hard number, world consumption is down 25 million barrels per day. Fox 26's Tom Ziska offers more insight on the price plunge and the tough road ahead.
To close negative really shows you the state of this market.
The numbers were enough to shock even the professionals of the energy market as crude oil prices plunged through the day.
You can't stimulate demand when nobody's on the road.
Houston energy analyst James Bevan thinks the falling prices are understandable. As the COVID-19 pandemic has shut down much of the globe, demand for oil has plummeted, leaving an overwhelming surplus of crude with an ever-dwindling amount of space to store it. From the vast tank farms in Oklahoma to facilities along the Houston Ship Channel, there are concerns that space will run out.
So traders are worried that over the next 5 weeks or so, if we keep filling at the rate that we filled last week, we're going to have no more storage left. And therefore, people are going to be forced to shut in production and there's nowhere for it to go.
The ripple effects of a production shutdown would be felt throughout Houston and Texas. If refineries had to slow, the pipelines leading to the vast fields of oil rigs in West Texas would be squeezed as well. And all along the way, businesses that contribute or depend on the energy sector would also feel the pinch. It certainly sounds bad, but analyst Bevan thinks the price plunge should be short-lived as a timing issue for oil traders looking for financial shelter, while the city's major energy companies can plan for a bigger picture that just might be more stable.
This doesn't really fundamentally change what they were already planning to do over the past month or two. Everyone was expecting April to be a pretty bad month. Everyone's budgeting for $20 to $30 a barrel crude oil. So this one-day event isn't exactly going to change operating plans of anybody.
Still ahead, as a safeguard against coronavirus, the president shuts down all immigration to the United States. Is it justified or just a play to his political base? Our panel is set to dive in, so stay with us. This week, President Donald J. Trump temporarily suspended immigration into the United States, citing the invisible enemy and the need to make sure all available jobs go to American citizens thrown out of work by the pandemic. Supporters called the move prudent, but the president's critics called it an election year ploy to stir up his anti-immigrant supporters. Panel, what is your point? I'm going straight to Bob Price.
Well, first off, Republicans are not anti-immigrant. They're anti-illegal immigrant or illegal aliens. But the issue here is this isn't a prudent move by the president. This is a necessary move, a mandatory move that has to be done. We have 25 million Americans who are out of work. When this economy starts to come back, we need to put people into every available job that is out there. And we don't need to be importing more people that keeps our American workers from being able to go back to work. So the president is taking absolutely the right step, and maybe it does fire up his base, but that is irrelevant to this point. It's what we have to do to protect the workers and to protect our economy and get people. We don't need people waiting around gathering unemployment while they're bringing in more people to take jobs.
Tamara Bell, when you heard this news, what was your reaction?
First off, I did believe it. Well, I do believe it is a political ploy. And let's be clear about this anti-immigration and where people stand on this. There are positions that anybody who wants to be truthful that's on this panel, Americans are not going to take. They're just not going to do it. I know that they made exceptions to the agricultural area, and that's supposed to help, but there are other jobs that Americans are just not going to take. So it does concern me about the ploy that he's taken with the anti-immigration. So, it's not just about the jobs. You have to look at it because what about the immigrants that are already here? What I was telling you all about the gentleman feeding the 12,000, I looked at the people that were in those lines. Most of those people are immigrants who had jobs every day that Americans didn't want and never had, and some of them had them for 15 years. So be practical about the statement about jobs, because the jobs that a lot of people lost, these people never would have got anyway.
Like many of the president's moves, Carmen wrote, this will likely draw some type of legal challenge. What was your reaction to the president's move to bar, at least temporarily, immigration?
There's a lot of legal action that's out there that becomes moot before it actually has any impact. So it's interesting to see lots of lawyers working really hard for an effect that has no meaning. This is limited. I think it's significant. And don't forget for 1 second, we're not just closing borders around the United States. We've closed the border between Louisiana and other states. You can't go in and out of certain areas inside the United States because this is a serious health crisis. And so first and foremost, we're worried about the safety of the United States citizens. So if we're going to shut down and lock down this country, we're going to lock it down completely. And second of all, as far as the jobs, I mean, this whole idea that there are jobs out there that no United States citizen will take or can take, you know, let's see what happens. But at the end of the day, this notion that nobody wants it and so we need to give it to illegal immigrants or people who are coming in from out of the country is absurd. Right now, there are people that are working at Kroger who never worked at Kroger because that job is available. And while our citizens are hurting, I think we need to focus there first. So I don't think it's political, and I think it's the right move for right now.
Michelle Maples, is this move by the president defensible from a policy standpoint and a legal standpoint?
Yeah, so let's keep in mind that Donald Trump is not anti-immigrant. He is pro-legal immigration. He wants to enforce the laws that are on the books, and he wants to close the loopholes and the asylum fiasco that we've got down at the border. He wants to shut that down. Let's get that straight. Second thing, most Republicans and Donald Trump are anti-illegal alien, that he wants to enforce the law. Now, with that said, this policy was absolutely the right move. We've got over 20 million Americans who are out of work, and you cannot tell me that you go knock on one of those people's doors who does not have a job and does not have an income to feed their family, and you said, hey, I got work for you, you can start tomorrow. It may be in the agriculture field, it may be in the service industry. You cannot tell me that Americans will not fill those positions. I think we will do what it takes to feed our own families, and that we have to take care of Americans. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to put the oxygen mask on ourselves before we can go and help other people in other countries.
Bill King, we've got about 45 seconds, but you're pretty skilled at the fine line between solid policy and political ploys. What was your read on this?
Well, let me get this straight. It's too dangerous for me to go out and get a haircut, but it's okay to keep letting people come in from other countries. I mean, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This is much to do about nothing. And by the way, the United States is not the only country that's doing this. People are shutting down their borders. Countries are shutting down their borders all over the world. I think this was actually a prudent move. And look, I know it plays into his narrative about immigration and about the politics and all that. But look, sometimes doing the right thing is the right thing, whether there's a political implication to it or not.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Much has been reported about the damage done directly by this coronavirus. The lives taken, the livelihoods lost. What has gotten far less attention relates to the collateral damage caused by the unprecedented response. Dr. Jeremy Finkelstein, head of emergency medicine at Methodist Hospital, says people in our community have needlessly died because they postponed care for non-COVID related conditions.
So are people avoiding the emergency department, and is it leading to negative outcomes in terms of their health? And the answer to that is absolutely. In fact, when that Washington Post article came out this week, I queried my docs. We have 150 docs across our system that work in the emergency departments, if they had seen cases where delayed care had led to a negative clinical outcome. And the answer is an overwhelming yes. There's been many examples of EMS units being called to the homes for increased volumes of cardiac arrest at home. Those patients normally would have called 911 when they were having chest pain or other symptoms prior to a cardiac arrest. And those patients are now basically dead on arrival when the EMS gets there. And what people need to realize is, in Houston, we have not been hit with the severity of the pandemic that other cities like New York City have, for example. We have plenty of bed capacity in Houston, for example. Here at Methodist Hospital, we've been able to use our ICU resources appropriately. We have plenty of bed space for other folks with regular routine conditions and emergencies. So our message to folks is, it's safe to come to the hospital. We have plenty of bed capacity to take care of patients and any condition that may present to the emergency department. So trust your instincts. If your body is telling you that you have a serious medical condition going on, unrelenting chest pain that doesn't relieve after an hour or so, severe abdominal pain that does not decrease with over-the-counter treatments or other home remedies, signs of a stroke like loss of speech, incoordination of muscular movements, loss of use of one side of your body, or vision changes. Those things are all appropriate reasons to come to the emergency department. So we also want people to know that it's a clean, safe environment. In fact, at this point in time, it may be a safer environment than ever because our heightened awareness of COVID and other infectious disease processes has the rooms turned over and cleaned more frequently. We're using UV disinfecting robots that terminally clean the rooms between patients. And most importantly, we're segregating out those patients that we think are highly suspects of COVID-19 into different areas of the emergency department. So they're actually being treated in a physically separate area. So the patients that come in for routine medical illnesses are not subject to being exposed to those types of patients.
Up next, an important anniversary and something of a silver lining. Stay with us. There's more of What's Your Point ahead. Welcome back. Bunkered in and distracted by the obvious, as we all were, it may have slipped past some of you that Wednesday was the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Yes, we humans have been pretty hard on the planet over those 5 decades. Polar ice melting, rainforests demonstrably shrinking, animal populations dwindling, oceans warming. I could go on. I think we all know it's in our best interest to do what we can to be kinder to our habitat. There is a small silver lining to report. The reduction in movement necessitated by the pandemic has lowered air pollution across the globe to what scientists are calling unprecedented levels. Once smoggy cities are now enjoying clear skies, and levels of the most dangerous particulates have plunged dramatically. Yes, while it's almost certainly temporary, it is an unexpected snapshot of a healthier world, something of a nostalgic anniversary gift, a short, sweet breather for the planet we inhabit. Stay right where you are. Fox News Sunday with host Chris Wallace is just ahead. From all of us at What's Your Point, have a safe and healthy week.